This is an unsettling story that I do not usually bring up in normal conversation, yet it's still always on my mind. It happened to me a few years ago, but I will never be able to forget this strange experience that happened in my own home. When I was a child, I was always afraid of the bathroom in my basement. Every time I walked in, I would always think that someone was hiding behind the shower curtain. I would say, "I see you," just in case someone was there, and they would be alerted. No one was there, it was all just a fear in my head. As I got older, it became a frequent habit of mine to always say, "I see you," as I walked into a room by myself. If I went to take a shower, I would say, "I see you." Come home from work, "I see you." It was all just to prepare for the slim chance that someone would be there and think that I saw them. One weekend when I was 18 years old, my parents were out of town, attending a close friend's wedding. My dad was the best man. I had the whole house to myself, and it seemed like the perfect getaway from their strict rules and occasional arguing. I didn't have friends to invite over, so I was always just alone, by myself. On the first night, things were upright. I binged my favorite horror movies, ordered food from my favorite Chinese restaurant, and just did classic teenage things that I enjoyed. I woke up the next morning for work, which at the time I was a delivery boy for a pizza place near me called the Bergen Beach Cafe. I did a lot of deliveries that night, and I remember making over $100 in tips, which at the time was huge for me. Around 8 p.m. my shift ended, and I arrived home. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw an unfamiliar car parked on the sidewalk close to my house. At first glance, I thought it was my neighbor's car, but there would be no reason for them to park in front of my house since they have a driveway of their own. Though it was strange, I brushed it off, and I walked in my house. I changed out of my work clothes and showered up into fresh pajamas. "I see you," I said, as I regularly do when I walk out of the bathroom. Something was sitting on edge with me, and the nervousness from seeing the strange car outside my house was clouding my judgment. Being alone for another full day, with my only family members out of town, was making me feel very apprehensive. But I continued on with my night. I walked downstairs and went into my kitchen to heat up my food. I get sick of eating pizza a lot of the time since I'm around it all day. So on my way home, I picked up some macaroni and cheese from the deli. 3 minutes in the microwave left me time to wait around and ponder my thoughts. I left the kitchen and walked into my living room to see what was on the television. I was a bit of a nerd and was always looking for cartoons to watch. "I see you," I said. Slowly, my heart started to drop below my waist. The moment I'd been preparing myself for my whole life had come. Something I will never forget and still haunts me to this day. From the corner of my eyes, I saw a tall, thick figure hiding behind the curtain. It started to move slightly. I was speechless. Goosebumps ran through every inch of my skin, and my brain couldn't process fast enough what to do. I swallowed deep, thinking quickly what my next move should be. The curtain moved again. I was frozen. Slowly, the curtain began to open, and a man dressed in all black was standing there. He had his head tilted to the right, staring at me with intent to murder. He had a Chelsea smile, a fresh cut with blood still dripping down, dirty skin, and his smile was wide with eyes full of rage. "I see you too," he said in a deep, raspy voice. He then pulled out a large knife from his back pocket and pointed it at me. I started to run. He immediately followed. I sped out the door with a 10-foot lead. There was no time to close the door behind me, as it would only hold me back. When I ran outside, it was pouring rain and pitch black with only the streetlights providing light. Luckily, my neighbor a few houses down across the street was a police officer, so my first instinct was to run there. I slammed on the door, knocking hard until my knuckles started to bleed. I looked back, and there he was. He stopped chasing me, but he was right there in the middle of the street, staring at me. The same smile and same crazy eyes. Suddenly, the door opened and I rushed inside and closed the door shut with no explanation to my neighbor. I looked outside the window from his house, but I could not see any trace of the man. To this day, he could still be out there, somewhere, lurking around. Every time I think of this story, I wonder what could have happened if I never said, "I see you," whenever I walked into a room.